Hi everyone, my name is Leo, a member of the Butterfly Effect group. Just like a butterfly, leadership is a journey. And with me in this journey, I have Saloni, Catherine, Richard, and Glenn to discuss leadership fostering innovation and change. So let's get started. Fostering the innovation and change journey starts with Saloni, who will critically examine the external environment affecting innovation in organizations, and will also investigate the barriers that leaders may face, and how that trigger an urgent need for change. Remember that innovation processes cannot occur in a vacuum, and the external environment needs to be considered. In the second stage of the journey, Catherine will illustrate how the internal structure can play a role in fostering innovation and change. This can happen through strategies such as encouraging diversity, welcoming technology, and finally improving team engagement. Equally, we may ask ourselves, okay, we need to make a change and foster innovation. So what sort of leaders do we need here? Are transformational leaders the one needed? Or will the servant leadership do the job? Richard will be next inspecting the right leadership style needed for the right situation. Finally, Glenn at the end will explore the types of challenges organizations may encounter, such as the COVID pandemic, and how leaders need to always scan the horizon to survive.
Thanks, Leo. The external environment can impact innovation in organizations and can vary from the markets they operate in to the regulated framework relevant to its industry. According to writers, the external environment could be a barrier to innovation for leaders. For example, the hospitality industry who have to maintain strict COVID-19 procedures due to recent regulations. However, evidence shows the transformational leadership style which creates vision and a shared purpose creates an environment of empowerment, allowing the followers to find innovative approaches without being affected by this turbulent external environment. In fact, other writers suggest a transformational leadership style could inspire followers to find new markets despite the external barriers. The reason for this is transformational leaders' traits are to seek opportunities in the face of challenge and risk. According to writers, an uncertain external environment like the current pandemic can be stressful for the followers, and therefore comfort is sought in transformational leaders. The reason for this is that trauma activates the same areas of the brain that is influenced by the vision set by transformation leaders. This being the case, imagine the trauma that people are experiencing in organizations which don't have transformation leaders and the impact this is having on innovation. While the research shows positive outcomes of transformational leadership in an uncertain external environment, there are limitations. This is due to the research focus being on large established organizations. Writers suggest an SME leader has to focus on operational details, therefore limiting time for strategy to enact innovation. Other writers agree that the lack of structure and culture in startups have similar challenges, and therefore transformation leadership may not be as effective in fostering innovation. Overall, there is evidence that transformational leadership can foster innovation in an uncertain external environment. However, as discussed, it can be subject to the type of organization amongst other factors. Additionally, leadership behaviors cannot change overnight. A more realistic approach is to get the best out of the followers. The focus needs to be on acts and activities, as it would be challenging to change an individual's character and behavior in a short space of time. Therefore, instead of trying to change leadership styles, a focus and act strategy can be more effective to get the best out of the talent, particularly in a pandemic. Getting the best out of your talent is also dependent on the internal environment of an organization. This is another lever in the broader ecosystem that fosters innovation and change, which Catherine will share insights on now.
Thanks, Saloni. So now let's explore how strategies such as diversity, technology and process, and workforce engagement can foster innovation and change, with leadership being the focal point.
For leaders, encouraging diversity to foster innovation and change looks like having people with different experiences and backgrounds working together, ensuring there is a range of products and services, and encouraging out-of-the-box thinking and thought processes. Companies that have a diverse culture are outperforming those without by 15%. Interestingly though, diversity programs don't always increase diversity. Perhaps this is due to the ineffective command and control style of leadership, often displayed at executive levels, which makes it almost impossible to implement actual change and a diversity-focused culture. Choosing the right technology and process is important for leaders to foster innovation and change. Let's look at the fourth industrial revolution, also known as Industry 4.0, as an example. Industry 4.0 will enable leaders to provide better connectivity, give greater flexibility, and enhance safety in production and improvements. Industry 4.0 initiatives are intended to allow businesses to grow, explore, and embrace technologies. Transformational leadership styles find it easier to embrace technology and process as they are adaptive and are risk takers. I imagine transactional leaders who are more suited to routine and structure would be struggling right now to cope with the changes in the technology and processes that's needed for organisations to survive COVID-19. Engaging your workforce is also critical for leaders who want to foster innovation and change. By understanding employees' motivations, leaders can shape organisational culture which drives innovation. The use of psychometric tools such as DISC can help tap into employees' values, assumptions, beliefs, and expectations. The difficulty with understanding employees' motivations is that they might not be aligned to the way you want them to be motivated. Leaders that are resistant to change will see their businesses become obsolete. Leaders wanting to focus on developing workplace culture will ensure all stakeholders have input and are listened to, will have free and open communication that promotes ideas and information sharing. They'll have seamless change management practices that embrace risk, and they'll have a flexible environment. Just think how critical this has become during the pandemic. So we've discussed how diversity, technology and process, and engagement are critical for leaders to foster innovation and change. However, it does come down to having the right leadership style for the right situation, which Richard will discuss next. So now, over to you, Richard.
Thanks, Saloni and Catherine. Let's talk about using servant leadership with the right tool to apply it, the situational leadership model. The world is forever changing, and we need to move from a top-down leadership style to more bottom-up, where there's empowerment, of which we know creates innovation. As the world changes, the people who witness the changes first and the opportunities are the frontline employees. They interact with customers and consumers, and we need to involve these people from the bottom up. From my own experience in the 90s, the Asian decades in Thailand, top down was great. It fitted with the culture, was all about growth, controlling people, stability, implementing foreign processes, managerial authority ruled, but not now. Many innovations start from the bottom up, but due to globalization, digital technology, ideas are being shared much faster. Consumers want more, much more. Frontline employees witness this firsthand. Now, COVID has brought with it fundamental changes in many areas, including leadership, and we needed to rethink the role of our CEOs and leaders. Leaders have realized they need to shift from a top-down command and control to be more visionaries and less commanding. They will need to focus on inspiring, energizing, and empowering their employees. The leaders of today and the future need to bring energy, passion to catalyze innovation, change, and growth. The way to do this is by utilizing the model's situational leadership. Easier said than done in a society like Thailand, where seniority delegates power. So how do you implement servant leadership, or any leadership for that matter? You can't just adapt the style to your own choosing to fit any sort of situation. Imagine applying servant leadership straight up to a new firefighting grad. Hey, here's a hose, there's a fire, tell me when you need some help. See ya. So let's take servant leadership as an approach first. The leader exhibits a consistent and philanthropic commitment to assisting employees to grow. It positively promotes creativity and collective innovation. The advantage is, of course, that they encourage frontline workers to perform and succeed. A secondary benefit is that this style of leadership encourages employees to try new ideas, learn and grow. Effective leadership varies, of course, and the situational leadership model to the left is a theory of business leadership that promotes the benefits of combining a wide range of managerial skills with working with employees within the same organization. This tool allows you to transition from your top-down leadership to bottom-up empowered leadership, sharing ideas, taking ownership, and most importantly, thinking. It's about empowering people on the front lines using the servant leadership model. By empowering people, you will realize innovation. Each of the four styles, telling, selling, participating, and delegating, is a combination of task and relationship behavior. Telling, what, where, when, how, selling, might be willing but unable to take responsibility, participating, followers have the ability but may lack self-confidence or enthusiasm, and delegating, the holy grail, followers decide when, where, and how to perform. The key to this model is that it accurately assesses the maturity level of each followers. Leaders help followers mature, and the leadership behavior adapts accordingly as this process is undertaken. A good example of a company using servant leadership coupled with the situational leadership model is 3M. It's a large organization well known as innovation and employee engagement, culture of innovation creativity through diversity, and 1-to-1 ratio of products per employee. They open international innovation centers to tap into overseas talent, and the R&D and sales and marketing team are in direct contact with each other. But since the days of the post-it notes, floppy disks, and cancer creams, they're still searching for those glory days. One reason that has been noted is the cancellation of 15% of the employees' free time to work on pet projects, coupled with less free rein and thus less innovation. A bad example of top-down leadership style would be Nokia. They didn't listen to what customers want, yet Apple did. At its height in 2008, Nokia had 38.6% market share compared to Apple and Samsung combined in 2018. The frontline staff, they always knew about iOS and Android and the new threats, but it was so top down that no one ever wanted to say anything to top management. As a result, Nokia never took advantage. This lesson illustrates the importance of bottom up, allowing people to reflect on what is changing in the environment, share ideas, catch ideas. The failure of Nokia was top down and using S1 of the model, directing or telling. I hope this gives you some insight into how to utilize servant leadership with situational leadership. But there are risks. Over to you, Glenn.
Thanks, Richard and team, for some great insights. But fostering innovation and change through leadership is not easy, so we will now focus on some of the risks and challenges. Saloni examined the role of transformational leadership in facilitating organisations to adapt to external environmental changes, and the current pandemic is certainly emphasising the importance of effective leadership. Heifetz and Laurie developed the concept of adaptive change based on a biological analogy. In their view, it is critical that leaders correctly distinguish between technical and adaptive challenges, because each requires different leadership qualities. Technical challenges can be effectively met through traditional leadership skills and styles, but adaptive challenges require a transformational approach and the engagement of the whole organisation. If the pandemic is viewed as a technical rather than an adaptive challenge, a business might choose to ride it out, utilising government support initiatives rather than to adapt. In this case, transformational leadership may not be appropriate. The table in the slide shows key features of the leadership styles. However, leaders of all types must constantly scan the complex external environment for signs of change, or risk being unprepared, as thousands of Australian businesses are now discovering. Kath focused on the role of leadership in developing organisational cultures which support innovation and change. Leaders throughout the organisation must build this culture by leveraging the values, assumptions, beliefs and expectations of their employees, instilling a sense of purpose and creating a culture that learns from mistakes. When leaders respond critically to failures, it sends a strong negative message about the extent to which the innovation model is really embraced. In 1938, Thomas Watson said, "If you want to increase your success rate, double your failure rate." His first attempt at creating a digital computer was a spectacular failure, but IBM went on to become the leading computer company. Rachel Brown argues that financial incentives alone are not enough to motivate employees and foster creativity. Leaders must also engender a sense of purpose in their followers. That is what really drives creativity and innovation in organisations. Richard explored some advantages of the theory of servant leadership. However, the practical application of this philosophical approach presents some challenges in the business world. Servant leadership is focused primarily on the welfare of employees and the development of organisational culture. Whether this necessarily promotes innovation and change is an open question. Some researchers argue that it is a necessary foundation, but with such a strong internal focus, there is a risk that the external environment may be overlooked. The key tenet of the philosophy is that servant leaders can be effective at any level of the organisation. But is this really the case? The servant leader needs to be accepted by their followers as a leader, otherwise they run the risk of being seen simply as a nice person that's supportive and works hard, but has little real influence in fostering innovation and change. Lou finds that servant leadership brings into question a simple demarcation between leaders and followers, and suggests that the relationship is codependent, negotiated and complex, harking back to Hesse's novel, The Journey to the East, and its central character, Leo, that first inspired Greenleaf's theory. I will now hand you back to our Leo to wrap up the presentation.
In conclusion, there is no unique leadership model to foster innovation and change. There are a variety of factors that would impact any implemented style, some of which can be internal, which starts with individuals' personal traits, as well as their values, assumptions, beliefs, and expectations. The external impact also put the pressure on leaders to think about an emergent strategy and change. When we talk about stakeholders, let's take consumers' shopping behavior as an example. We see now with COVID-19 outbreak how online shopping has become more popular than ever. Therefore, leaders who never considered fostering innovation through technology will now realize the tangible impact this pandemic has on their organizations. For those reasons, leaders must show flexibility in switching between one leadership practice to another to cope with the changing situation. In the end, I hope we learned something interesting about fostering innovation and change. Thanks for watching, and see you on the discussions board.